garage of Dr. Frank Conried, on November 2nd, 1920, the first scheduled pre-advertised radio program in the United States went on the air. Station KDKA was broadcasting returns of the presidential race on the evening of Election Day. From a humble beginning in a Pittsburgh garage to the sumptuous studios of the national radio networks in New York, Chicago, and Hollywood, these are the years we refer to as the golden age of radio.
Here's the Manhattan merry-go-round that brings you the bright side of life, that whirls you in music to all the big night spots of New York town, to hear the top songs of the week sung so clearly you can understand every word and sing them yourself.
Al Kemp on the air for Griffin. It's time to shine. Shine your shoes and go.
Tony Home Permanent presents...
This is Nora Drake.
The Golden Age of Radio is brought to you by Burritt Mutual Savings Bank, serving Central Connecticut since 1889. Dick Bertel and his special guest, Hans Conried, will be with you in a moment. But first...
Gee, Dick, why so gloomy?
Oh, same as usual, Mary. Money problems. It seems my pay is just swallowed up by monthly payments. On top of all this, I need 4 new tires for the buggy. I just don't know how I'll be able to afford them.
Why don't you do what our neighbors did? Trot on down to the Burritt Mutual Savings Bank and talk to Bill Karras, their family credit manager. You know, he granted them a consolidation loan, which they repay in low monthly payments at lower interest rates than they've been paying on other loans. Their monthly bills were cut in half, and for the first time in their lives, they're saving money.
Bill Karras, huh? Burritt Mutual Savings Bank?
That's right. They've helped thousands of people like them. You'll be surprised to see how easy it is to arrange a loan.
By the way, Mary, what does Bill Karras do when he needs money?
I don't know. I guess he asked his wife, Nellie.
Burritt Mutual Savings Bank, New Britain, West Hartford, Weathersfield, Rocky Hill.
And now the host of the Golden Age of Radio, Dick Bertel.
Good evening, and with me once again is the man with $2,000 of old-time radio programs on tape, Ed Corcoran. Ed, we're broadcasting from an unusual location tonight.
Yes, Dick, we've been backstage, but this is the first time we've actually been on stage.
And with us, of course, is the star of the production currently at Ivoryton Playhouse, Hans Conried. Hans, it's a pleasure to welcome you to our program, and thank you very much for welcoming us to your setting tonight.
Well, thank you, Dick. It's all been neatly swept, you see, and we're prepared for the evening's performance, and I'm sure that the stage manager will have some concern about what we do to the arrangement of the chairs, but you're certainly very welcome to be here.
We could talk to you about any number of careers. We could talk to you about television, about motion pictures, of course, about the stage. But we want to talk to you tonight, of course, about your career in radio. And that goes back to, you told me.
1935 I started in radio.
When you started in California, were you from California?
No, I was a New Yorker, and that was the end of the Depression, and I learned that there was no more possibility of my being educated. I was 18 and a strapping boy, and it was time to earn my bread. And my parents and I emigrated to California, and happily there was, within a matter of 2 or 3 months, I began my business that I followed ever since as an actor, and it was in radio that, much lamented from my standpoint, golden era in the American theater.
Yes, that's a rather interesting point, I think. We were discussing this, too, that radio was a unique art form, wasn't it?
Well, you consider it now. There were many of us engaged in it. It is hard to explain to persons who have never utilized it as an evening's entertainment as we in our time did. But I suppose it was as avidly followed, and it caused as much social conversation, and certainly did, I suspect, rather less harm than the popular one that might as well be nameless now, in which I also make a living. It was a very rich theatrical form that has not been matched, I think, in many aspects by anything that has come later.
Do you recall the first show you did, Hans?
Yes, we had a series of Uncut Shakespeare. A station that was KFAC that called itself the Aristocrat of the Air. They had been doing just classical music. And they reached a point where they wanted to have something dramatic as well as these classical recordings that they were playing and the news broadcast. So the only thing that the aristocrat of the air could do would be Shakespeare. Well, they had no one there who really knew much about cutting, and there were no scripts. We all got the same prompt books of Shakespeare, and with organ interludes between scenes, you read the play from Act 1, Scene 1 to the end of Act 5.
No adaptation.
No adaptation at all, and the announcer, to explain whatever stage direction was required, was, of course, the very marvelous voice of the news announcer. And they had some actor of some stature and luminosity as far as the stage or screen concerned as the star. But the rest of us were these unknown anonymous radio actors, that happy band of brothers that continued and had been established for a long time.
How did you manage to bridge the gap between the local, independent, unaffiliated station and the network?
Well, you have to serve an apprenticeship, and I want you to know we worked 2 days. You rehearsed for 2 days. And the payment of $15 was rather princely. I worked then later in another station for 50 cents a night, $2.50 for a 30-minute broadcast. $5 was big money. But then about 1937, exactly 37, there was a show brought in to California from Chicago called First Nighter.
On that little theater off Times Square, that was actually a New York setting. But
I must tell you that I believed it before I was part of it, and I'm sure most of America thought they were entering a little theater off Times Square with Don Briggs, Mr. First Nighter, showing you to your seat.
And Barbara Luddy, of course, was always the starlet.
The marvelous, marvelous little Anson. And these were not slipshod castings. I competed. They wanted a young character man, and I competed against 25 other gentlemen, 25 men, and I was chosen. I was the 26th, and I was chosen for the job. And that salary was really munificent because that was $25. Radio had a good deal more glamour than anything we do now. Manners were such. And I was obliged to appear in a tuxedo and a dinner jacket. Well, I bought my dinner jacket. I had none. And I bought it for $22.50. It was a new one, but that's what they cost. And my salary, so I didn't make much profit. They must have realized that it could cost me a good deal to invest in that first production.
Of course, you had that remarkable facility for radio, the ability to change your voice.
Most of us had that. It enabled you to work more often.
Mm-hmm.
When I tell you that I worked for 50 cents a night, and that apprenticeship was very valuable, there were only 5 of us doing a show. It was a very cheap carbon copy of a very successful show out of New York called March of Time.
Mm-hmm.
And we called it It Happened Today. And I remember in one 30-minute show, for which I was paid 50 cents and wasn't worth much more, I had to play 18 voices in 30 minutes.
You know, you keep mentioning this, the craft which has all
Well, it has
been
the
lost,
same
let's
facility
say.
now and the same scope that being a dirigible pilot or a buggy whip raider, you know. It was a craft. We did our work, and those of us, I think, I can say honestly, we felt then, and I can speak out now and say we were very good indeed, those of us who worked. They were pretty capable actors within their scope and sphere.
Now, let's talk about the days when AFRA was formed. This was 1937.
Yes.
What brought it about? What were conditions
A
like?
great many necessary conditions. We were not always able, and I say we engaged ourselves to work for $2.50 a performance, or $3 a performance, or $5 a performance, or $10. But because we engaged ourselves, didn't always say that we were going to be paid.
Mm-hmm.
There were, as in every business, certain unscrupulous members who were not always ready to keep their promise. And there were other disadvantages. We had a thing called speculation performances, speculation auditions. So to say, a gentleman would call you and say, look, I've got an idea for a show. I want to make a recording of it. It's a spec show, which meant that you would come up and give him as much time as you would for a show that would keep you alive, that would pay you $5 or $7 or $10. If it were sold, he would then put your name on his list of eligible and employable performers. If you refused him, the idea was that you would never work for him should the show sell. Well, since most of us had a good deal of spare time in those days, we were eager to do it. However, the flagrant use of this practice, sometimes to the extent you would very often be called on a Monday morning for a spec show. A studio in those days could be hired for $25 or $35, a recording studio. You would discover that the leading lady invariably was someone, a very well-formed girl and very handsome and personable, but not likely to be an actress of any stature or dimension. It would soon, within the matter of the reading of the first page and her reading of her first 2 or 3 lines, be evident to everyone that the producer, for a very modest fee of just hiring the studio on this Monday, for maybe $25 or $35, was paying off a personal debt to this lady, and wasn't a possibility of that show selling with that dame playing the part. You could tell that, you know.
But
that was one of the situations that prompted everyone to say, oh, come on, this other thing can't go on.
Be a payday saver at the Big B, Barrett Mutual Savings Bank. Come into any office of Barrett on any day of the month and meet a select group of savers. The payday savers, businessmen, tradesmen, professional people, career girls, yes, and even mothers who save from the grocery money. Why do these people all stop in at the Big B? To save on a regular and very profitable basis. A payday saver is a regular saver, one who knows that through a systematic plan of savings, he will be able to pay for that college education, new home, or retirement trip. At the Barrett, the payday saver receives 5% on a regular account with interest from day of deposit to day of withdrawal, 6% on 2-year certificates of deposit, 5 3/4% on 1-year certificates, and 5 1/4% on 90-day notice accounts. Join your friends at the sign of the Big B, the Barrett Mutual Savings Bank, and become a payday saver.
We haven't heard you yet, and I know Ed is very anxious to play an excerpt.
Yeah, I thought. Yeah, we have a few here. I thought we would start with My Friend Irma. You recall on that show at all?
No, I haven't heard that. That died the year radio died. I'd played it for 7 years. That was the end of radio, you see. Post-war was comedy I did mostly, and there was a pod called Professor Kropotkin. He began the first show I was not in. I was in the second show on for the rest of the 7-year run. The first show, he was a musician living in the garret of a boarding house who made answer only with his violin. But there wasn't much possibility to continue that character, so they brought me in. And as I recall, I played it first with a Russian accent, but then the political situation, so we altered it and made it a Jewish dialect. And he called himself a gypsy. And that's the way the character developed within just 2 or 3 programs, and it held that way. And I did the same thing for 7 years. There wasn't much variety. If you hear one, you'll hear them all.
Well, let's hear one anyway tonight, Dick.
For the safety of your smile, use Pepsodent twice a day. See your dentist twice a year. Lever Brothers Company presents the Pepsodent show, My Friend Irma, created by Cy Howard and starring Marie Wilson as Irma with Joan Banks as Jane.
Friendship, friendship, just perfect friendship. When other friendships have been forgot, theirs will still be hot. My friend Irma.
Here, and all the birds have migrated south where they'll remain until spring. Which reminds me of the girl I live with, Irma Peterson. Yep, that's my Irma, a living contradiction to the scientific theory that no one can live in a vacuum. Oh, well, she's still my roommate, and I'll stick up for her anytime. Right now, we're both in the apartment, and everything's quite normal, I think. Oh, no, it isn't. Irma is covering up the calendar with her hands. Irma?
Yes, Jane?
Why are you covering the calendar with your hands?
It's a secret.
What do you mean, secret?
Tomorrow's my birthday.
Well, why the whispering?
I want to give myself a surprise party.
Oh, no. Look, honey, no one ever surprises themselves.
Oh, yes, they do. Remember the time I added up 8 and 8?
Yeah.
And I got 16?
Yes.
Well, wasn't I surprised?
That was an accident. But about your birthday party, honey, you don't have to go around whispering because I've already made plans for the day.
Plans?
Yes, honey, I'm giving you a birthday party, and I've invited all our friends.
Now, here, sweetie, here's the list of names I invited to your party.
Oh, let me see. Oh, Mrs. O'Reilly and Professor Kropotkin. Oh, and Richard Rhinelander and the Martins and Al. Oh, Jane, I wish you hadn't sent Al an invitation.
Why? Don't you want him to come to your birthday party?
Yes, but I'd rather have him think it was a Halloween party. I don't want him to know I'm getting any older.
Don't be foolish, Irma.
Well, you know what they say. A girl should always marry a man older than she is, and I'm afraid I'll lose Al.
That's ridiculous. Al must be at least 3 years older than you are.
But he won't be if I keep on having birthdays.
Oh, Irma, stop worrying. Besides, I can't understand what you see in that unemployment bench warmer.
Oh, Jane, you don't know the real Al. I'll admit he doesn't work and he has no ambition, but to me, he's the man of my dreams, and I hope he never wakes up.
You know, I think you'll get your wish. Come in.
It's only me, Professor Kropotkin. Hello, Janie and Irma, my two little ballet dancers. One on her toes, the other still spinning. Excuse me, a little joke I picked up. Oh, what difference does it make?
Why, Professor?
Well, girls, I received the invitation to Irma's party tomorrow night, and I was wondering, would you like I should bring my fiddle? Maybe you'll want to have dancing.
Oh, that'd be swell, Professor. Have you decided what kind of costume you're going to wear?
Costume?
Oh, I forgot to tell you, sweetie. I thought we should make your birthday a little different this year, so I decided it's going to be a costume affair.
Oh, well, I was thinking I would come as a sea captain, Janie, because every time I walk into my room, I feel as though I've gone down with the ship.
Gee, what are you going to wear, Jane?
Well, I thought I'd like to come as Joan of Arc.
Oh, I see. Then Richard could come as Noah.
Sweetie, you've got the wrong arc, but the right idea.
Irma, darling, I want to get you something nice for your birthday, and since I'm an old friend, I want you should tell me what you'd like.
Oh, Professor, you don't have to bring me a present. You work hard for your money, and as they say it isn't the gift, it's the value.
I know what you mean. It's the thought behind it.
Yes, so why don't you save your money and just give me the thought behind it?
Never mind, Irma. I'll think of something nice. Tell me, Janie, is Mrs. O'Reilly coming to the party?
Well, I sent her an invitation. Why do you ask?
Well, I just want to be prepared. I think I'll come as the straw man. So when that old crow shows up, I can scare her away from me.
Look, Professor, will you do me a favor?
Janie, for you, anything in the world.
All right. Then at the party, try to be nice to Mrs. O'Reilly.
All right, Janie, but it's a cruel world. And speaking of cruelty, I think I'll go back to that torture chamber I call my room. Goodbye, girls.
Well, all right, Irma, let's not waste time. I want to straighten this room up.
Well, I'll help you, Jane.
Okay, but only with the understanding that you stop sweeping things under the rug. All our furniture is standing at an angle. Why don't you use the Hoover vacuum cleaner?
Because the Democrats won this year, and I didn't think it was patriotic.
Do you know how being a preferred borrower at Burritt Mutual Savings Bank can help you? The other day, we asked a man who was waiting in the personal loan department if this were the first time that he had applied for a loan at the Burritt Mutual Savings Bank. No, he said. It was actually the fourth. Now, why had he come back to the Burritt? Burritt was his bank. The loan officers were friendly and sympathetic to his needs, and they were willing to take the time to discuss his financial problems and help him. The rates are lower, he said. Monthly payments are convenient, and once he had established credit at the Burritt, he had become a preferred borrower, and his loans got top priority. Sound like a position you would like to be in? If so, drop in at any one of the Burritt Mutual Savings Bank's 4 convenient offices. You, too, may become a preferred Burritt borrower. The long-term benefits are tremendous.
You're listening to the Golden Age of Radio, brought to you by Burritt Mutual Savings Bank, serving Central Connecticut since 1889. This is WTIC Radio in Hartford, Connecticut.
We're visiting with Hans Conried, here at Ivoryton Playhouse, our guest tonight on the Golden Age of Radio. Hans, of all the parts you played, what type would you prefer to play when you were active in radio? Comedy? Dramatic?
Well, no, comedy for me, I was a character comedian, too, very early, but comedy did not come into vogue till after the Second World War. I did character parts first from 35, and I did a good many emotional, dramatic parts, rich and wild and fruity parts. And then, when the threat of war came and we began to do more and more propaganda shows, and they weren't always good. The acting had to be of a certain standard and not very high in order to infuriate the local market. I played, Nazis because of my German name and the dialect, and I was the standard Hitler on the West Coast, and I remember once Stefan Schnabel, if you know him, he met me once. He said, "Now look, Conried, let us do as the Pope of Rome did. Let us run a line down the United States, and then you play all the Germans west of the Mississippi, and I'll play them east." I myself went into the Army for 3 years, and when I came back, there was a vogue for our Army, you understand. There was a vogue for comedy, and I became a comic stooge, and it was at those later times that in which My Friend Irma, Life with Luigi, I stood for Burns and Allen, for Eddie Cant, for almost everyone. Judy Canova for years.
Well, you recall doing the Maisie series? That was pretty early, wasn't it?
Yes, we had a Maisie series. That was Ann Sothern.
Ann Sothern.
I must have done, that must have been comedy.
Yes, well, it was kind of a villainous kind of role, villainous kind of
Well, I may have played it so badly it came out. I did that on occasion,
Hiya, babe. Say, how about it? Ouch!
Does that answer your question, buddy?
The Adventures of Maisie, starring Ann Sothern. You all remember Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer's famous Maisie pictures. In just a moment, you will hear Maisie in radio, starring the same glamorous star you all went to see and loved on the screen. And now, here's Ann Sothern as Maisie.
Yep, I'm Maisie, like the man said. Maisie Revere of Brooklyn. But right now, I'm thousands of miles from Brooklyn, singing here in the Green Jade Cafe in Tahiti. And how I got here is another story. Anyway, I found out the most interesting subject of conversation around Tahiti, outside of the comical tourists, is pearls. And almost everybody knows the story about the big pearl called the Thursday Island Pink. I've heard it was the size of a golf ball, and I've heard it was more like a basketball. I guess it's really the size of a big marble. But 7 men died fighting over it before it ended up in a Maharaja's collection. What everybody in Tahiti wants to know is how to find the hidden lagoon the Thursday Island Pink came from. So one evening after I'd finished singing, a young fellow I'd loaned some money to came in and sat down at my table. He was very excited. Well, what's it all about, Jimmy? Your eyes look like you've been inhaling the fumes from the ventilator of an opium joint.
Maisie, you and I are going to be rich.
Ah, come on. Climb down off that cloud before you fall right through it.
Oh, yes, Maisie, we're going to be rich. You're going to be slightly rich, and I'm going to be disgustingly rich.
Well, I'd be happy just to be what they call well off. Tell me, how's this going to happen to me?
Well, remember when I hit you for that $20 to go hunting for the lagoon where the big pearl, the Thursday Island Pink, came from?
Jimmy, don't tell me you found it.
Yeah, Maisie, I did. And it was nowhere near Thursday Island either. Oh, Maisie, look at this pearl. It's yours.
Oh, my gosh. It's as big as a walnut.
Just one of the peewees. And let me tell you something about that pearl of yours, Maisie, before you get rid of it. Remember that there's lots of good in the worst of us. And don't ever think I've let you down.
Well, how could I think you'd let me down when you've given me this?
Maisie, the reason I'm talking like this is that I may not live through the next few days.
What's the matter? Is the rich life too hard on you?
Well, you've heard of Blackie Schneider, haven't you?
Who hasn't?
Well, he knows I found the lagoon where the Thursday Island Pink came from. And he knows I'm selling one just like it. And he knows that the... Maisie, he just came in the place.
Oh. Have you got a map or anything you want me to keep for you?
Well, quick, give me a pencil or something. I'll draw the map for you and throw the one I'm carrying in the fire when I make a break for outside.
Well, here's a ballpoint pen.
Oh, good. Well, I'm drawing it right now.
Hey.
Shh. I won't mark the spot where the big oysters are. You'll be the only one who'll know because they're...
Oh, my gosh. Well, Jimmy, why can't you and Blackie Schneider settle this thing?
Maisie, I've double-crossed him twice. Well, all right, there it is, with the latitude and longitude and the general outline of the lagoon. Now, Maisie, you're the only one besides me who knows where the pearls are. Well, here goes nothing. So long, Maisie.
Good luck, Jimmy.
There he is. Get him.
I think I better put on my jacket and take a little walk just for my health.
It's me, Kwong, in here. Who that there outside door?
It's Maisie Kwong.
Oh, come in, kid.
Now, what's on the mind, Maisie?
Oh, Kwong, Jimmy told me he'd found the hidden lagoon where the Thursday Island pink pearl came from. What do you think of that?
Excuse, please. I make mark on wall.
What's that for?
Maisie, this 37th time I hear somebody knows where Thursday Island pink pearl came from.
Oh, gee, it sounds like it's a familiar story.
Last year, 63 times. But I hear that Jimmy gave a big pearl to Lu Fang to sell yesterday.
I guess everybody else heard it, too.
But I believe this time he found it.
I believe him, too, Kwong. Look at this.
Oh, he give you this, Maisie?
Uh-huh. For that $20 bill I loaned him.
Very funny.
What?
It's not worth $20. It's glass.
I don't believe it. He told me to remember there was a lot of good in the worst of us, and not to think he'd let me down.
Did he give you a map?
Yeah, sort of. Here it is.
Oh.
What's the matter? You been there before, too?
No. I just wonder if me, Kwong, going to be big fool again and look for pearls.
Hello, Kwong.
Oh, Blackie.
Don't either of you reach for anything, wave to anybody, or scratch yourself, or you're a dead man.
Well, I may be dead someday, but I'll never be a man. Stop waving that gun around like it was a flag.
All right, Maisie Revere, dive for that big pearl and hand it over to me.
What if I'd pull out a gun instead?
Oh, Miss Revere, you fascinate me. You're very charming, I like your singing, and you've got a figure that troubles my dreams. But if you don't hand over that pearl before I count 5, I'll put an end to the whole business. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Here, take it.
It's better.
Now, watch him get a silly face, Maisie.
Wait a minute. This is no pearl. This is glass.
Now hand me my shooter back, and I'll play you a fast game of marbles, cowboy.
So this is what Jimmy gave you. Here, take it.
Thanks. You might as well give him the map, too, Kwong. He looks like he came for something, and I wouldn't want him to go away empty-handed.
And I was just about to ask for it.
Oh, well, here you are. You will save me money looking for the big pearls.
Goodbye, Kwong.
Now, have a nice trip, Blackie. Stay a long time.
Well, goodbye, Maisie Revere. You're something to remember me by.
Hey, cut it out. Oh!
There. And I'm going to get another one when I come back a millionaire. Oh!
And you're going to get another of those, too. Now, get out.
What a woman.
The map is gone, Maisie. We never get it back.
That map? Well, that's no good. I made it up from the real map and changed the numbers a little.
Oh, Maisie, you didn't trust me. Where's the real map?
Right here. Jimmy drew it on my back with a ballpoint pen.
Oh, very clever, these Americans. Okay, Maisie, we look for the big pearls. 50-50 partners.
It's a deal, Kwong.
We leave in 2-3 days. You do anything you want till then. But one thing.
I know. Don't take a bath.
When looking for that new car, may we suggest that you come to the Barrett Mutual Savings Bank? No. The Big B does not sell new or used cars, but it does help people to buy them. Chances are that you didn't know that the Barrett Mutual Savings Bank will make you a car loan at low, low rates. Before buying that new car, call any one of our 4 convenient offices for information. But wait, that's not all. You will need another car when this one wears out. And the Big B had the plan for that, too. When you finish with your new car loan, keep on making the payments into a Burritt Mutual Savings account, where you will earn big, big dividends with no effort at all. Savings rates range from 5 to 6%, depending on the plan you choose. But whatever the plan, the next car you buy will be paid for by your Burritt Mutual Passbook. So don't wait. Drop in at any office of the Burritt Mutual Savings Bank for your new car loan or to make that monthly payment on your old car loan. Burritt Mutual Savings Bank.
Now, did you work on one coast or the other?
I primarily was a California actor. Euphemistically and glamorously called Hollywood. Indeed, there were the New York actors, the shows that came out of New York in the golden days of radio were primarily of a documentary sense and very often a more literate sense and very often a more substantial sense. Chicago was primarily a soap opera production center because the slaughterhouses in those days were in Chicago where the soap was being manufactured of animal fats.
That's interesting.
That's exactly the reason for it. And the sponsors' wives who decided upon the artistic merits of any artist were in close proximity to the production. And Hollywood then, you see, when I began in 1935, just at that point, San Francisco was the big town on the coast. And up to that point, motion picture artists, motion picture performers were forbidden to appear on radio for fear they would lose their glamour. And since tickets cost 35 cents a piece to go to the motion pictures, there was a real problem until someone's nephew, I suppose, in one studio decided, let our actor, our movie star, step into your living room. And the phrase was born, and suddenly there became a vogue for motion picture actors. Now, the movie star was named and starred. He was the great glamorous attraction. And that's how Hollywood expanded into the glamour show. But those surrounding him were the workaday able actors who played part after part after part.
Did this lead you into any movie roles yourself associated in this manner?
No, movies came to me rather differently. Suddenly television came in, and we worked for nothing. This was speculation purely. A show called Pantomime Quiz. And I became a professional wise guy. And it was the first time anyone had really seen me. I'd done bits, and I was working in pictures from 1938, but always small parts. But suddenly, when I became a professional wise guy on free television, I was ushered no longer into the offices of the casting director who took care of the smaller parts. I went right into directors' offices then, suddenly. And they'd never seen me act. They said, well, he's a funny fellow, we'll use him. But they had no idea whether I could fall, whether I would faint under the lights or what.
All right, we're going to take you back now to a program that everyone remembers, I'm sure. Sorry, Wrong Number.
Oh, what a lovely show. Aggie Moorehead, we always felt, was one of the very finest actresses in the English language. And, Aggie, as always, was magnificent. It, of course, was a tremendous tour de force for her. She did it 5 or 6 times thereafter, but I was in the first one, and I did it subsequently 2 or 3 times with her.
Now, your part was on a major one.
There was no major part except Miss Moorehead,
that's right.
Frankly, but I was the murderer.
That's right, with a Dutch accent.
With a Dutch accent on that occasion.
Well, would you like to hear what it sounded like?
I'd like very
I do have
much
a copy
to hear
of that.
it.
This, I believe, is the second time it was done.
I'll try to sob as quietly as I can.
Suspense. This is the Man in Black, here to introduce Columbia's program, Suspense. Tonight, as we premiere our new Saturday evening series on the air, Miss Agnes Moorehead returns to our stage to appear in The Study in Terror by Lucille Fletcher, called Sorry, Wrong Number. This story of a woman who accidentally overheard a conversation with death and who strove frantically to prevent murder from claiming an innocent victim is being repeated by popular request as tonight's tale of suspense. If you've been with us before, you will know that suspense is compounded of mystery and suspicion and dangerous adventure. In this series are tales calculated to intrigue you
to stir your nerves, to offer you a precarious situation, and then withhold the solution until the last possible moment. And so it is with the story Sorry, Wrong Number, and the performance of Miss Agnes Moorehead. We again hope to keep you in suspense.
Oh, dear.
Your call, please.
Operator, I've been dialing Murray Hill 70093 now for the last 3/4 of an hour, and the line is always busy. I don't see how it could be busy that long. Will you try it for me, please?
I will be glad to try that number for you. One moment, please.
I don't see how it could be busy all this time. It's my husband's office. He's working late tonight, and I'm all alone here in the house. My health is very poor, and I've been feeling so nervous all day.
Ringing Murray Hill 70093.
Hello?
Hello? Hello, is Mr. Stevenson there?
Hello? 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 Hello, George?
Yes, this is George speaking.
Hello, who's this? What number am I calling, please?
I'm here with our client.
Oh, good. Is the coast clear for tonight?
Yeah, George. He says the coast is clear for tonight.
Okay.
Where are you now?
In a phone boat. Don't worry. Everything's okay.
Very well. You know the address.
Yeah, I know. At 11 o'clock, the private patrolman goes around to the bar on 2nd Avenue for a beer.
That's right, at 11 o'clock.
I will make sure that all the lights downstairs are out.
There should be only one light visible from the street.
Yeah, I know. At 11:15, a train crosses the bridge. It makes a noise in case her window is open and she should scream.
Oh, hello, what number is this, please?
Okay, I understand, I tell you. That's 11:15, the train.
Yeah. Do you remember everything else, George?
Yeah, I make it quick. As little blood as possible. Because our client does not wish to make her suffer long.
That's right. You'll use a knife?
Yes, a knife will be okay. Then afterwards I remove the rings and the bracelets and the jewelry in the bureau drawer. Because our client wishes it to look like simple robbery. Don't worry. Everything's okay. I never...
Oh, how awful, how unspeakably awful. Oh. The operator. Oh.
Your call, please.
Operator, I've just been cut off.
Sorry, what number were you calling?
Why, it was supposed to be Murray Hill 70093, but it wasn't. Some wires must have got crossed. I was cut into a wrong number, and I've just heard the most dreadful thing, something about a murder, and, operator, you simply have to retrace that call at once.
I beg your pardon. May I help you?
Oh, I know it was a wrong number, and I had no business listening, but these two men, they were cold-blooded fiends. They were going to murder somebody, some poor innocent woman who was all alone in a house near a bridge, and we've got to stop them. We've got to.
What number were you calling,
Well,
please?
that doesn't matter. This was a wrong number, and you dialed it for me, and we've got to find out what it was immediately.
What number did you call?
Oh, why are you so stupid? What time is it? Do you mean to tell me you can't find out what that number was just now?
I'll connect you with the chief
Oh,
operator.
I think it's perfectly shameful. Now, look. Now, I want to trace that call. It's my civic duty, and it's your civic duty to trace that call and apprehend those dangerous killers. And if you won't...
I will connect you with the chief operator.
Please.
This is the chief operator.
Oh, Chief Operator, I want you to trace a telephone call immediately. I don't know where it came from or who was making it, but it's absolutely necessary that it be tracked down because it was about a murder that someone's planning, a terrible, cold-blooded murder of a poor innocent woman tonight at 11:15.
I see.
Well, can you trace it for me? Can you track down those men?
I'm not certain. It depends.
Well, depends on what?
It depends on whether the call is still going on. If it's a live call, we can trace it on the equipment. If it's been disconnected, we can't.
Disconnect?
If the parties have stopped talking to each
Oh,
other.
but of course, they must have stopped talking to each other by now. That was at least 5 minutes ago, and they didn't sound like the type who would make a long call.
Well, I can try tracing it. May I have your name, please?
Mrs. Stevenson. Mrs. Albert Stevenson. But listen...
And your telephone number, please?
Plaza 42295. But if you go on wasting all this time...
Why do you want this call traced, please?
What? Well, no reason. I mean, I merely felt very strongly that something ought to be done about it. These men sounded like killers. They're dangerous. They're going to murder this woman at 11:15 tonight. I thought the police ought to know.
Have you reported this to the police?
Well, no, not yet.
You want this call checked purely as a private individual?
Yes, but meanwhile,
I'm sorry, Mrs. Stevenson, but I'm afraid we couldn't make this check for you and trace the call just in your say-so as a private individual. We'd have to have something more official.
Oh, for heaven's sake. You mean to tell me I can't report that there's going to be a murder without getting tied up in all this red tape? Why, it's perfectly idiotic. Well, all right, I'll call the police.
Thank you. I'm sure that would be the best way to do it.
It's ridiculous. Perfectly ridiculous. I can't believe I have to go to all this trouble. 7. Oh. It's high. No.
Hospital. Good evening.
A nurse's registry.
Who was it you wished to speak to, please?
I want the nurse's registry at once. I want a trained nurse. I want to hire her immediately for the night.
I see. And what is the nature of the case, madam?
Nerves. I'm very nervous. I need soothing and companionship. You see, my husband is away, and
We quite understand that, madam. But these are war times, you know.
Well,
registered nurses are very scarce just now.
I'm a sick woman. I'm very upset, very. I'm alone in this house, and I'm an invalid. And tonight I overheard a telephone conversation that upset me dreadfully. In fact, if someone doesn't come at once, I'm afraid I'll go out of my mind.
I see. Well, I'll speak to Miss Phillips as soon as she comes in.
What was that?
What, ma'am?
That click just now in my own telephone as though someone had lifted the receiver off the hook of the extension telephone downstairs.
Well, I didn't hear it, madam. Now,
But I did. There's someone in this house. Someone downstairs in the kitchen, and they're listening to me now. I won't put this out. I won't let them hear me. I'll be quiet, and they'll sing. Oh, but if I don't call someone now while they're still down there, there'll be no time. Oh, my God,
your call, please.
Operator, I'm in desperate trouble.
I'm sorry. I cannot hear you. Please speak louder.
I don't dare. There's someone listening. Can you hear me now?
I'm sorry.
But you've got to hear me. Oh, please, you've got to help me. There's someone in this house. Someone who's going to murder me. And he's coming up. He's coming up the stairs. Give me the police department. The police department. The police department. Give it to me.
One moment, please. I will connect you.
I can hear him. I can hear her. Oh, I hear him. I hear it. Hurry. Oh, no, you can hear me. I know you can hear me.
Police Department, Sergeant Martin speaking. Police Department, Sergeant Martin speaking. Police Department, Sergeant Martin speaking. Police Department, Sergeant Martin speaking.
Police Department? Oh, I'm sorry. I must have got the wrong number. Don't worry. Everything's okay.
Suspense.
When you look into the future for your children, what frightens you the most? The cost of a college education? Right. Well, there's nothing you can do about the rising cost of education, but you can provide for your children by saving. There are several plans open to you at the Big B, the Burritt Mutual Savings Bank. The first, a regular savings account, paying 5% from day of deposit to day of withdrawal, with interest compounded monthly. The second, a 6% certificate of deposit. Third, a 5 3/4% certificate. And fourth, a 5 1/4% 90-day notice account. If you save a portion of your pay each payday, you'll be pleasantly surprised at the handsome sum you will accumulate over the years. Don't wait. Stop in at any one of Burritt Mutual Savings Bank's 4 convenient offices and add to your existing account or open your new account today.
Let's talk about the transition from radio into television, because many of the shows did at
one
first
day
make it
heaven
on TV.
extended its irresistible arm and held the cleaver of fate in its fist, and it cut us off. Radio died in the fall of 1953, I suppose, that last season. And it had to die suddenly and violently because the networks could no longer sustain it, because they intended to go into the new medium, television. If they had tried to hold on to radios, they might have for a season or two. There would have been other moneyed interests to create the television industry, you see. But on that occasion, the radio industry had only to turn to its sponsors and said, we have something new for you to buy, something wonderful and three-dimensional now. So we're going to discard this little thing, radio. And the sponsors, very understandingly, nodded their head and bought the new product. Those actors of us who had made our living in radio were completely discarded. There were some very bright young men in television, and there was an opprobrium to having been a radio actor. It was said that you were a ham, that you made faces when you acted, and that was true to a certain extent.
You're saying something that has never been said before, to my knowledge, that the networks themselves killed the medium.
Well, they had to, yes, surely. You had to destroy. It's the story of the little Jewish lady who had 2 chickens, and when one fell sick, she killed the well one in order to make chicken soup for the sick. Yes, they were engaged in an industry that had little future. That was obvious to all, because the technical facilities of television were apparent. And so they were all prepared to sell and buy and produce, so why not discard the old model as far as they were concerned? It may have been difficult on us, but it was quite understandable.
Well, were there any radio shows that went into television that you stayed with the cast and appeared before the camera?
Well, I didn't look like anything that I was playing, you see. There was a show we did, My Friend Irma, that was very successful for 7 years. I did Kropotkin, but I was a little old man, and I was just a man in my 30s at that time, or my late 20s. Well, I guess I was my 30s. And so they put that on television, but it didn't go.
Yeah, the only one that really made it big, I would say, would be Armis Brooks, where they had the same cast.
Yes. Had the same cast for a while, and then Chandler became so successful
that
he
brought
went
in the
into
other
his own
man.
career, and they had to replace him. Armis Brooks, that's true. And I'm sure we think there'll be several others. The Lucille Ball show was a tremendous success on television. She had a much greater adventure on television than she ever had on radio.
Yes, that's true. Yes.
You know?
I didn't realize that Lucille Ball was on radio.
I used to stooge for her. I still have scars on my small of my below my ribs where she elbowed me from the mic 1,000 times. Oh yeah, she was on radio.
Did you ever have difficulty with crowd scenes around a microphone?
No, we had our agility. We knew how to work that sort of thing.
Well, let's take a look at radio for what it was. Hans, what are your feelings about the medium as you knew
what
it?
What do you
as
feel
worked
about
there?
your spent youth? And you're a younger man than I am. It was a marvelous time. I learned of happily I was able to sustain myself as an actor. I don't know what I should have done for a living. I would have had to learn something else.
What about from the listener's standpoint? Do you think that
I think there's a
today's
loss.
young people have lost something?
Well, I don't. That's, with changing times, of course. The young people, I have 4 kids myself, and I know they have been educated or they have been entertained by the television screen. They have not read half the books at 20 that I read at 7 or 8, you know. They have not the literary background. They are in high school and college. And they're obliged to, but to read for pleasure, they don't. And radio always seemed to me an extension of reading. Indeed, those of us who became radio actors must have enjoyed reading, or we would never have had the facility. When I tell you that at 16 or 17, or when I was 18 and became a professional actor, doing then what I'm doing now, some 35 years later, I was a pretty slick reader. And indeed, it was such a facility that was sometimes superficial, because you very often gave your very best performance the first reading, and you sometimes never felt that it was necessary to improve it. So there was that unfortunate aspect of it. But by and large, we were a pretty slick bunch.
Hans, you certainly were thrust into national prominence when Jack Paar took over the Tonight Show.
Very happy, fortuitous occasion made me again extended my situation as a professional wise guy. And from that point on, I was lucky enough to get my name above the play. That's nominally the star. I may not be a star to my fellows, or a star to stars, but I've been in that situation as far as my agent is concerned now for some years because of Jack Paar. And so in those difficult times when I was scratching around doing what I could in pictures and in television, and within a matter of 2 weeks or a week after he started that night show, he called me on the phone and said, "Look, why don't you come to New York? I've got a new show, and I need people to talk, and you have a big mouth." And he knew me that well, and I said, "What do you mean? You just talked? Or what do I play?"
Yeah, right.
Well, the first time, I had done Pantomime Quiz, but that was a wild, superficial kind of thing in which I played a kind of a madman, because I only had to think fast and keep talking. But now suddenly when he introduced me by name, that gave me a bit of a turn. Here's Hans Conried. And I thought, well, now, what is this man? How do I dress him? Do I limp? Does he wear a mustache? What sort of a hat will he wear? And then you develop for that aspect of the business, that professional wise guy, that talker, as I still do very often on shows, you develop a facade that is easy for you. I don't say it's identical with what you are by any means.
But it is a facade.
But it's a facade. Well, the plumber has a facade. Your butcher has a facade. Every human being, there's no human being who is actually what he appears to the world around him precisely. It's something close, but not identical by any means. So you develop that, and that afforded me, from the Paar show, I suddenly found myself starring in a play on Broadway, the tall story on Broadway. I suddenly found my name above the... I haven't been on Broadway often in these years, but I haven't had, thank God I haven't had to, as we say. I've been able to keep myself busy throughout the country.
Have you ever heard of the Burritt Mutual Savings Bank and wondered where it got its name? If so, you may be interested in this explanation. The Burritt is in recognition of one of this area's most noteworthy citizens of the 1800s, Mr. Elihu Burritt, the learned blacksmith. Elihu Burritt was a self-taught linguist, a patriot, and peace emissary who served his country here and abroad. The mutual came from the fact that the bank is owned by and operated for its depositors. There are no stockholders in the bank. Established in 1889, the bank has served generations of depositors and borrowers in central Connecticut, and is today a large, strong, and successful institution. When you save at Burritt, you commemorate the glorious past, profit from the successful present, and share in the promise of an eventful future. Burritt Mutual Savings Bank, a proud mutual savings bank with offices in New Britain, West Hartford, and Rocky Hill.
Hans Conried, I want to thank you very much for sharing your recollections of the golden age of radio with us tonight. And,
I can't tell you what a pleasure it's been, Dick.
It's been great fun.
You've seen my eyes grow misty time and time again this last hour. It's only because I'm an elderly gentleman thinking warmly upon my misspent youth.
Ed, it's been great fun sharing your collection again. You're on the golden age of radio, and I look forward to our next get-together next month. Until then, this is Dick Bertel.
This is Ed Corcoran.
Good night.
The Golden Age of Radio is brought to you by Burritt Mutual Savings Bank, serving central Connecticut since 1889. This program was engineered by Bob Shirago and was produced and edited by Brian Hartnett. This is Paul Sutton.
Don't despair, use your head, save your hair, use Stitch shampoo. Pepper Young's Family. The story of your friends, the Young.